Open heart spirituality. Here we go. Okay. What's that about? Anybody got a guess? Fill me in. No, the first thing, it came out, open heart spirituality, and I wrote it down, and I went, don't I mean open-hearted? And I went, no, it's open heart spirituality. And it came from the idea of open heart surgery, and I was thinking about the world today and how blocked up and congested we seem to be in so many different areas, and that maybe what we need to do is open our hearts to spirituality, have a metaphysical surgical procedure that brings us to a place of connection and compassion and understand for each other. And so that's really what came out. It's not about open-heartedness, because if you're open-hearted, you've already got it. But it's about opening the heart, like we would do in surgery, like they do when there's restricted flow, and when there's a blocked artery, and there's plaque inside. You have to go in there and, oh man. As a part of this, I looked at one of those surgeries of open heart surgery on YouTube. YouTube has everything on it. You can watch somebody have their heart operated on YouTube and you can get disgusted right there in front of your own computer. Oh, and it was like, because I wanted to see it, but I don't go to horror movies, I barely like suspense movies. I love action figures, but I don't, that stuff was too real. It's just too real. But I know it was real. It's all an illusion. That was the most real illusion that I've seen in a long time. From a metaphysical perspective, it's all an illusion. That's true. But I was just thinking about, I was with my my spiritual men's group this week, and Anam Cara, and we talked about conflict and how do we resolve conflict, because there seems to be no discussion going on between various sides. People don't want to, it's not that we have to change somebody's mind or opinion about something. That's not what it's about, but it's simply about having a conversation. A couple times a month, that's about often I go on Facebook. I try to do it more often, but I notice that there are people that put on there, if you're a supporter of this or you're a supporter of that, you got to unfriend me. I don't want to be your friend anymore. First off, if you're on Facebook and that's your only friendship, I question whether it's really friendship, but that's another story. But the idea that you would say, no, you can't be on my Facebook page because I don't agree with you about this kind of thing, instead of picking up the phone and having a conversation like, hey, what's going on? What are you thinking about that? And get some questions asked, like we talked about in our Connecting with the Peaceful Heart class. How do you open up and get out of your box and have conversations? How do we move, particularly our Congress, which I thought was, what do they call a bunch of monkeys to gather together? Wow. So I was thinking about our Congress this week and all the stuff that hasn't been happening. There, Social Security reform, Medicare reform, tax reform, guns and violence, immigration, campaign finance. They can't make up their minds about any of it. So what happens is the status quo takes place. Do we want status quo spirituality in the world? Do we want that to continue as it is? Or do we want to open our hearts up to more of understanding, get rid of some of this unhappiness and depression that takes place as a result of all the things that are not happening in the world today? And it's not a solution that requires pills necessarily, the kind I'm talking about. It's solutions that require us having action, taking the principles of science of mind and applying them on a regular basis into our lives every single day. Taking the time simply to notice. Like I like to say, I like to spell notice, know, K-N-O-W, notice what's going on in the world. Take the time to do that. Dr. Holmes says in Science of Mind textbook, he says, man will deliver himself from sickness and trouble in the exact proportion to his discovery of himself and of his true relationship to the whole. Now, first off, I want to just point out that often when I see a Holmes quote and it's from the generic male perspective that was spoken about at the time of 1938 when he wrote that book, I go, maybe I should change it and make it more gender neutral. But nah, I'm thinking this time, man needs to deliver himself from sickness and trouble in the exact proportion to his discovery of himself so his true relationship to the whole can improve. And yeah, ladies, you can do it too, but there's a lot of guys running stuff right now, and it's looking real sloppy. And if we could get around really understanding our relationship to the whole, that we are actually a part of everything that exists, that the chaos theory is absolutely true, that the butterfly that flaps its wings in Dr. Susan's office will make a storm in South America. I say Dr. Susan's office because she's got those caterpillars in that little thing right now, and they're hanging down there, and they're making their, it's very, chrysalis. They're building their chrysalises. It's very lovely to watch. The kids are going to come and enjoy that this week. But if we could really understand that, and understand that we are divine, and that there is just an individualized expression that we are, not individuals. No one in here has ever done anything all by themselves. If you think you did, think again. Even dressing this morning, you didn't do that by yourself, because the clothes you put on were made by somebody else. And the floor you were standing on was built by somebody else. So we're always interconnected in everything that we do, every moment of the day. Even breathing, we're connected to the planet because the plants have given us the oxygen. So it's always going on. And if we can understand that relationship we have and know the trueness of that relationship, the sickness and the trouble, the congestion, the Congress might get their stuff together and change things just a little bit. But one of the things that happens, and it's interesting that this has come up for the week of Halloween, and thank you, Bridget, and thank you, Andreas and Judith, for celebrating Halloween for us today. Have you noticed them? Right? How can you miss them? I know. The whole idea is that the veil between life and death is thin. We have this trio of holidays. It's All Saints Day and all of that going on for Halloween. So the costumes were, of course, to protect us, so we could be hidden from the ghosts, so we'd come back, so they wouldn't recognize us and take us off to the other side with them. Old pagan Celtic tradition that we have taken on ourselves, and I actually love Halloween. But we also wear masks in our regular daily lives. We put on these masks that tell us how we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be and who we're supposed to be, and we hide behind those masks. I know I've done it, and some of the masks I just want to rip off, but they seem to be stuck on with super glue, and it takes so much time. And that's what spiritual practice is all about. That's what this open heart spirituality is all about. Recognizing that we do have masks that hold us back, that allow us to judge and place the others as an object, or just one of the strongest ones, it's hardest to get rid of, is my dad, and God love him, he's a sweet man, and he's 80 years old, and every day he calls me, and he's not every day, but every week he calls me, and he's always talking about improving himself and sharing. He goes to a Unity church, and this is such an evolution. We can all change. He's a psychologist. He didn't believe in religion at all. He thought it was this, the pablum for the masses and all that kind of stuff. And then he started going to a Universalist Unitarian church in Boston. Then he moved to St. Paul, and he had to keep going. He found a Unity church, and now every week I hear from him, and he's got these, I got a great sermon plan for you. He's always sending me sermons, If I ever do one of his, I'll make sure I give him credit and tell you. This is a Lou Rambo sermon today, but not today. This is Steve's. But he's always trying to change himself, and he came clean about this one. He said to me one day, he says, I'm sorry that I called you Tex all the time when you were a kid. Hey, Tex, it's the all good. I'm good. I'm good. You fall down, don't cry, all that stuff. All that macho that us guys got, particularly in my generation of guys, which is, I think I'm talking to them, because the under 40 folks, that's why we call them next generation. They're not in the room. Oh, there's one. There you go. Did you get that? Did they tell you, be macho? Did you grow up with the macho thing? Yeah. You did? See? Gosh, we're still doing it. We're still doing it. And you get that mask on, and boy, oh boy, it makes it hard to get to your emotions. It makes it so difficult to be vulnerable and to cry. Don't believe me? Ask Johanna. She'll tell you. This guy has got some masks on that are hard to break off. And I know we all have that. But if we can open ourselves up to that true relationship that we have to the whole, to the individualized expressions that we all are, and to live from that place, we soften. We understand. We begin to hear. And when we begin to hear, then things begin to heal. That's the joy of realizing the oneness. It brings about peace. Realizing our oneness, it stops us from objectifying the other. And when we don't have an other, a thing, it's really hard to hate another person. It's easy to hate a thing, an object, an illegal, a person who's taking advantage of you, and you can name them and give them a label. Then you can get all upset, and then you can begin even to hate, and then the hate begets more hate, and then the hating begets more strife, and the strife begets more trouble, and then we're down the rabbit hole of destruction. Or Or we can practice the principles that we learn here in our teaching. We can understand that there is a law of the universe that is expressing as good and wants to express as good, and that we have the ability to change how things happen in the life that we live. In Living the Science of Mind, which is a lovely book of essays by Dr. Holmes, compiled in the 50s, he says, let us stop acting against ourselves, each other, and the world. Let us stop acting against ourselves, each other, and the world. For we know that our thoughts make impressions on our environments and on the people we meet and silently mold conditions. That's powerful. When you think about your thoughts, silently mold conditions. You don't even have to necessarily do the action. Think the thought, you know. We all have it. We've met people that have a great vibe. You know, I just really like that guy. He just feels good. That gal, she's just got this great energy. This energy, this vibe that people talk about, that's the thought process within that person. That's the consciousness of that person flowing out into the world and having that silent molding effect on the conditions in which we live. Can we open ourselves up? Can we open our hearts up enough to practice our spirituality enough so that we don't even have to say a word? We can just walk into the room and make a difference. If you don't believe that's true, why do you come here each week? Because when you walk into this room, you feel the difference. When you see the people in this community, you feel the difference. When someone in this room hugs you, you feel the difference. Because see, we understand a lot of this stuff. So I know that I'm talking to the choir. I know that. But also, by having this reminder on a regular basis, we get deepened, we get to bathe ourselves in this so that when we go out into the world, we become these forces for change. We become these open-hearted spiritual beings that silently mold conditions. And we do it because we know that love overcomes. We do it because we do believe what we say. You know, Dr. Holmes, when Founders in the Wilton Theater was packed houses, like, 2,000 people for 3 services and standing room only, a lot of celebrities would come. A lot of the directors from Hollywood would come, and the actors from Hollywood and directors from plays would come. And one of those directors took Dr. Holmes to a play one time. And after the play was over, he said to this friend that he went with, he says, that play was, I don't know, something was missing. And the director said, yeah, the actors didn't believe the lines that they were saying. They didn't believe the lines that they were saying. So the play didn't feel very good. In our lives, we are actors in a play called life, and the audience that's listening all the time is the big cosmic ear of the universe. And if we don't believe what we're actually doing and teaching and live it from that perspective, it doesn't work pretty well. In The Science of Mind, he says, if our words are of the intellect only and not spoken from the heart, the audience will not respond. Do we want the audience, the universal presence, to respond to our words? Let's drop from this space up here, from this thinking space, drop down here into the heart and allow that to be. And one by one, we can make change. We can impact change. There was a guy lives in Portland, Oregon. His name is Anton Cobb. And he was reading an article in the Portland Oregonian, or whatever the paper's called there in Portland. And in it, he saw that for the price of his weekly lunch, his daily lunch, he was an executive in a downtown building in Portland. He spends like $25, $30 at lunch, which is a lot of money, But for that money, he found out that 30 children in a home for kids, low-income families, where they would serve lunches, 30 children could eat for what he was spending for lunch. That really bothered him. So he got a table. He set it up in a place called Directors Plaza in downtown Portland. And he put a sign out. And he said, call it Our Lunch, little h, big O-U-R, Our Lunch. And he would just not have lunch that day. He said, for me sitting here for this hour, I am feeding 30 kids. Won't you join me? And it started a whole campaign. And people would start all over Portland. People would start skipping their lunch and bring their money and give it to him. And he would give it to these shelters. One guy, just doing something on his own. That's all it takes to make this shift, to have the audience respond, to have the universal presence. And now it's become a phenomenon. It's happening in other cities across the country. See, that's evidence of how love works. That's evidence of how the creative power works. In the back to the Living the Science of Mind, I was really enjoying that this week, and he says in there, if in our ignorance we have misused the creative power within us, all we have to do is reverse the process and cooperate with it. So here's a guy who's going out, spending probably more than he needs to at lunch. He sees that that's happening. He realizes that I could do something different with it. He reversed the process, and he started giving, and suddenly a whole movement took place across the country. Reversing the process, it's just that simple. We can all make that very simple reversing of the process. I found a video I was watching this week about prosperity around the world and how we can have more sustainable living. And in it, I ran across a group of people called the Thrive Market. Thrive Market. They're creating something to counter whole paycheck. You know whole paycheck? Amazon's trying to change that. They've already lowered some prices since they bought it. I'm talking about Whole Foods. And I don't have anything about Whole Foods. I have nothing bad about Whole Foods. In fact, Whole Foods, I remember when, in Austin, Texas, years ago, how many? 40 years ago, there were these two food co-ops in Austin. There was the Wheatsville Food Co-op, and there was Whole Foods Food Co-op. And Whole Foods went where it went, and Wheatsville went where it went. But it became this big conglomerate, right? And so we all know what Whole Foods is and what it's done. And it's done a lot for bringing healthy food out into the world. And now these guys who own Thrive Market are trying to do the same thing. It's a mail order system that brings food to your home. And the great thing about it, the reason I'm talking about it is they have not only are they bringing healthy foods to people, but it's a membership kind of a thing. And every time you buy your membership, you can go down on their page and fill out an application for a low-income family or a teacher or a student or a vet to receive a membership. And then you can get your savings that you make off their food, which is cheaper than at other places, and you can apply that savings toward that same campaign so that people can get food. And there are people in the world that are living in food deserts, you know, that aren't getting healthy foods. Something like 80% of low-income families are eating unhealthy foods. And not because they don't want healthy foods, because they can't afford it or don't have access to it. So here's a couple of guys who just came up with an idea to create a way for us who have a little bit better going on to give something to those who are struggling a little bit more. To create these food islands and oases where there were former deserts. Do you know in the city of Detroit, they do not have one major grocery store anymore? No Kroger's, no Safeway, no Ralph's. It's all ma-pa grocery stores, and the prices are high. That's a big city like Detroit. This is what's happening in places around the country. See, we don't hear about this because we live here in California, you know, where we have access, we have options, but a lot of places don't. So this is really wonderful. This is the kind of stuff that's happening. And in doing so, we lower health costs, we help people live longer, have a better lifestyle. All of this from a couple of guys having a change of heart, switching the script a little bit, and creating with this idea that we are all one in the mind of God, and we are all expressions of that. I'm going to go back to Johanna's Guru Mai, where she says, the awareness that gives birth to respect. Thank you for this quote. This is good. Oh, I'll try it. Chit Vilasananda. Chit Vilasananda. The awareness that gives birth to respect makes your heart expand, and the expanded heart receives all things, wisdom, love, knowledge, ever-increasing awareness, everything you need to live your life. And it all comes from respect, but really it comes from that expanded heart. When we expand our heart, we think better, so we're wise. We love more, and we begin to get downloads of information from the universal presence and all those around us that represent that, and that increasing awareness keeps that circulation going and keeps that heart opening even wider and wider and wider. That's the joy we get to participate in. That's what gets to happen as we take off our mask, as we break forth into some vulnerability, as we begin to become more open-hearted and develop open-heart habits. Remember, I talked about the surgery, right? And also, in looking at the healthy heart habits, I talked about what you do to not have the plaque and the arteries that are blocked and all that kind of stuff. And that's to eat more fruits, more vegetables, nuts, grains, get your proteins in healthier ways. And I'm suggesting that there's, just like there's a healthy heart habit diet, there's an open heart spirituality habit diet too. And that is to express more compassion, to live from a space of understanding oneness, to participate in loving kindness, and to think globally. You know, the world has never been smaller than it is today, and it hasn't changed in size since it began appreciably much. So as we can understand that, you know, I can tell a joke, post it on Facebook, and my cousin in Thailand can read it in 20 seconds later. That's a small world, you know? How do we sustain our lives? Well, it's that open heart, healthy habit of compassion, understanding, loving kindness. Baba Muktananda says, you will receive as much respect as you show to others. By honoring others, you're not doing a favor to them, but to yourself. Do yourself a favor. Open your heart to your spirituality. And so it is. All right. So for Halloween, let's take off our mask. Are you ready? Here we go. When all masks are removed and my heart lies open and exposed, the love that resides within me becomes a healing balm for the world. Post it, tweet it, share it, repeat it. Wow. Affirmations. Let's see what affirmations we have before we do our healing prayer. Eyes. Oh, wow. Karen Jones. It is God's pleasure to give me the kingdom, and through my joy, I lovingly receive it. And I accept Spirit's invitation to be fully present to this precious moment. Ooh, yes. Let's accept Spirit's invitation to be fully present in this moment as we join together in prayer. Thank you, Reverend Johanna. Reverend. So at this time, we're going to do our collective prayer. If there is someone in your life that you want to speak the word of truth for, or have that word spoken into the room, if there's a condition that you want to see change, we can use that universal law that we just talked about and bring about that change. We can silently mold conditions together. So I'd like you to join me in this presence and share with me out loud with the room who it is that we're going to pray for, what it is we're going to pray about. Feeling the collective presence of this room, I know that it is God expressing as a community of CSL Simi Valley, representing the larger community that extends out and covers the entire world. I know that our hearts are open, our minds are clear. We are in a loving, giving space of complete understanding and compassion. There is just the one life. That life is God. That life is my life and the life of every person in this room right now. Every person who might be viewing us online or through Facebook Live. Every person who just has a moment of thought. Oh, what are they doing at CSL Simi Valley? Right now we're knowing the truth. We're knowing the truth for them, for each of us, and for all that we've spoken. For we know that there is a divine presence that is infinitely giving and always available, bringing love and wholeness, peace and compassion, understanding, right action and divine guidance, finding that perfect employment, healing that broken relationship, putting the perfect operating system within the body over the entire body to push out what appears to be disease. But in the dis-ease, we replace it with the grace of the divine and the blessing of Spirit by putting the healing balm of love on it. I know that good is unfolding from this moment. Good is unfolding because we are speaking that truth and we are holding the intentionality and setting forth an idea that what is manifesting in life is only for the highest evolution of the planet, the highest evolution of all that we are thinking of, and the most joyous experience of life possible for anyone that's in our minds or our hearts right now. if you feel this truth as well, and if you are as grateful for the teaching that we share and the truth that we know of how to operate the laws of the universe for the good in our lives, affirm it with me now as we release this prayer into that perfect law by saying, "And so it is." I think